Hello, my name is Tyler,
And I am Hunter.
and we're going to take you through our journey through the EU. We're going to take you on some trips and tell you about our favorite stops. So we'll begin with Hunter.
Alright, one of the first stops that we went was to see Miss Julie Bynens, and we talked about the Flemish representation in the EU. I didn't know much about Belgium at all, so I found this talk really fascinating. Belgium is one country, but with two different backgrounds. The country is formed from a former territory of France, Wallonia, which
What?
speaks French, and a former territory of the Netherlands, which speaks Dutch. There's also a German-speaking territory in the west. This linguistic divide has not created an enormous national divide, and each region speaks its own respective language, but many people have learned both French and Dutch. This is best seen in Brussels, where political meetings are held in French and Dutch simultaneously. Miss Julie Bynens believes the country is unlikely to split. She said the cultural tensions subside with each new generation and that Belgium will be stronger together in the future. Belgium is a federal state, but its regions more or less govern themselves. This has allowed freedom to establish what is most important for each region. I find this interesting because Belgium is a nice model for the EU on how two different cultures can unite and work together in the big picture, but still have their own powers at a lower level. I would call them a mini EU.
Like mini
And-
Europe.
Like mini Euro and the Euro.
Later that day, I visited the German Savings Banks Association and had a talk with Mr. Wolfgang Neumann. At this talk, our three focuses were on the three pillars of the German banking system. The first one being the private, which has about 30% of the market share. Second being the corporate, with 25 to 30%. And then the last one, which was the one we focused on really hard, was the public or savings branch, which has about 60 to 65%. The public sector is characterized by five things. Their size, with a balance sheet of over 200,000 billion euro. And then the second one was decentralization. Despite their size, they're highly decentralized. The third is that all savings banks are very local, and so you can't really go out of your state and try to get a loan for somewhere. So you couldn't go to Berlin and try to get a commercial loan for something here in the state of Baden-Württemberg. The fourth thing is that over foreign service banks working in conjunction, and so this helps them get more ideas together and also helps with the small and medium business enterprises because they lack the economies of scale, even though since it's on a local level. But with working in conjunction all over the country of Germany, they're able to counteract this weakness. And then the last one is the public mission of the German savings banks. And is that under public law that they answer to no shareholders, so they're always working for you and I. And then something new that I found very interesting that they were talking about is this capital markets union, which is on the EU agenda here soon, and that's going to be a push throughout the next 5 years to try and make the banking systems throughout the EU more similar to like the American banking system. Back to Hunter.
Thank you, Tyler. Another trip we went to was the Council of the European Union. I'm just going to spit out a couple of quick facts real quick about it. It is made up of the heads of state or heads of government, the president of the European Council, and the president of the European Commission. Currently, the president of the Council of the EU is Lemdoda Strajuma from Latvia. So I butchered that pronunciation. An interesting thing I found out was that the Council of the European Union is a relatively new European institution. It was established in 2009 through the Treaty of Lisbon. The headquarters, as you would guess, are in Brussels, but in April, June, and October, meetings are held in Luxembourg, which is another place we visited. They meet at least twice a year, twice every 6 months, so that's 4 times a year. And their purpose is to decide the general political direction and priorities of the European Union. This means they just identify like what the major issues are and kind of direct what the legislative bodies should do. Thank you. They kind of separate powers through different council configurations. A couple of them are general affairs, foreign affairs, economic and financial affairs, justice and home affairs, and on. But there are only 10, so only like 5 others. Yeah, that's pretty much all we learned about the Council of the European Union. And I found the talks very interesting. Back to you, Tyler.
Ravishing stuff there. So, lastly, we went to Paris, as you see with our PSG gear here. And there we were able to go to the IES Paris building for the Business and International Affairs to learn about the French perspective on the crisis and the European economic policies. So, kind of the big thing that the speaker was trying to get at there was how big France's economy is in the European scale. They have the largest aerospace and nuclear institutions. They have the second largest chemical industries, and then the third largest agri-food industry. These three things will really help France throughout the crisis because they help with their self-sustainability. So, if you can grow your own food, you can really survive through the toughest times, was something that he really hit on. And then the second point that he made was how the outside perspective of France throughout the crisis, even before, was how it's a country that lacks reform and, in his words, is a black hole for more important economies here in Europe. It's a very critical statement that everyone has of France. And then the last thing, one thing that he thought of is France's mission throughout the whole crisis has been one Europe to protect. This is why they've never been so very critical like Germany has of maybe the Greece situation. That's because no matter how hard or how bad the poor, troubled countries have been, we shouldn't be too hard on them because even big, thriving countries like France, Germany, UK, and such even didn't play fully by the rules. So that's pretty much our summary for our trip. Anybody want to go back?
Yes.